Montana food products, look no further than Town & Country Foods of Dillon. Looking for made in Montana food products? Look no further than Town & Country Foods of Dillon. Looking for made in Montana food products? Look no further than Town & Country Foods of Dillon.
I forgot Karen's drunk.
Don't let her bully you, baby.
She's pregnant. She can sit wherever she wants.
Isn't that a comfy chair? Way too comfy for a chair. No.
Looking for made in Montana food products? Look no further than Town & Country Foods of Dillon.
3, first Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the minutes. First one, November 16th, 2022, the regular meeting minutes amended.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
Call for the question?
Question's been called for to accept the minutes of November 16th, 2022. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. Meeting for November 16th passed unanimously. Next one, approve the minutes of December 7th, 2022, regular meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve.
Call for the question?
Okay, call forward. All in favor of accepting December 7th, 2022 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. Minutes for December 7th passed unanimously. On to the petitions and communications. First is Mr. Ron Carroll. He has a verbal presentation for financial assistance for the downtown businesses. Mr. Carroll.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, Chief Pelosi, Chief Alvarez. My name is Ron Carroll. I own Emporium 406, and I'm at 34 North Idaho Street here in Dillon. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to all of you this evening on this topic. I'm going to just present a brief verbal presentation that's going to give a little bit of the background, the timeline leading through the project. And then at the end, I do have a letter for the city, and I will leave copies for everybody. A little bit on the background, the timeline. This project started 2 weeks late on April 18th. The timeline that Mungus Construction called for was to have each block closed for no more than 3 weeks and reopened. Move to the next block, 3 weeks, reopen. In April, I requested a copy of the contract from Mayor McGinley, which he willingly provided me. At which time, I read through the contract, perused it a couple times, read it fully once. What I found in the contract, a lot of it didn't make sense to me because I'm not an engineer, I'm not construction, but what I was looking for is a sequence of work. The timeline that was projected. In May, after things, in my opinion, began to go awry, I asked, as well as a few of the other business owners, for a meeting with the mayor. I think there was at least one council member at that first one, members from Dow, and members from Mungus Construction. They granted that opportunity to us. In June, after seeing no further satisfaction, the project, in our opinion, getting further behind, now getting into our tourism season, we asked for a second meeting. Same thing. Mr. Mayor, I believe you were at that. Mungus, Dow. I also met with you privately, Mr. Mayor, in your office. We discussed the importance of this project staying on track. I stopped briefly at Mr. Hazelbaker's office that same day, and we talked a little bit about that very thing, the timeline, and keeping them on track. In June, after realizing that there was an ARPA committee that had been established, I put together a request for the ARPA committee to please consider some of the lost revenue that we had already undergone. They were not able to take action on my request at that time. Further in August, as the project went on, I submitted a second ARPA request that was basically an update of the numbers and the worsening revenue that we had suffered at that point. Submitted it. It was rejected. We understood and understand now that there was limited funds, and I support what they did with the funds in terms of getting a new fire engine for the community of Dillon. However, in doing so, it also meant that we were not going to receive any funds. Nothing to help reduce that lost revenue. On September 15th, I believe was the date, Mr. Mayor, you signed off on the project as being substantially completed. October 19th, I spoke to all of you right here in the council chambers. I read you a letter, told you that I was going to go out and meet with as many of the downtown business owners as I could to see if they had suffered the same negative impact and loss of revenue that some of us on this first block had. It took me approximately 6 weeks to do that, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. During the period of April to September, I attended every city council meeting with the exception of one meeting. And during that same period, I spoke during public comment at all but 2 of those meetings. I want to talk a little bit about planning and execution. In my opinion, this project was poorly planned and even more poorly executed. There was no project or oversight officer assigned to this project. There was no communications officer assigned to this project. The only reason we had a list of emails and phone numbers was because Councilwoman Armstrong agreed to go out to all the businesses, collect those up, so that somebody could try to keep us in the loop, which she did, and I thank you for doing that. There was no street or building signage plan. There was limited communication with the public and further limited communication with businesses. In May, after I read the contract, I stood up here and asked all of you if any of you had read the contract. Not one hand went up in the city council chambers that day. To make things worse, when this contract was signed by the former administration in 2021, there was no stipend built into the contract to protect small business in Dillon, Montana if this project went off the rails in the manner that it did and lasted 22 weeks, nearly 22 consecutive weeks of closure on our street between Center Street and Bannock Street. I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we did as downtown businesses to help mitigate some of the loss. One of the first things that we did is we established the Dillon Merchants Association. By doing so, we were able to create some additional promotional shopping events that we felt would further enhance, especially downtown shopping. In part, it was a Great Montana giveaway in July, and it was Beat the Heat in August. In September, we jumped on board and assisted and partnered with KBM, KBEV Radio to help with the school drive, the campaign for school supplies. During that period of time, as I mentioned, I submitted a request to the ARPA committee. That request was ultimately rejected. Following that, I personally applied for a loss of revenue grant, which was rejected based on non-qualification. It was not tied to COVID, and I was not eligible. A few of the facts and my personal findings of what occurred. So the contract required the construction company to start at Helena and move south to Seabury Street, and they were supposed to do that in 60 days. That did not happen. The contract also called for them to make every effort to minimize disruption to the downtown businesses. I do not believe, in my opinion, that happened either. In my opinion, those two things alone constituted a breach of contract, and I've stated that previously. The block of Idaho Street between Center Street and Bannock Street was closed for nearly 22 consecutive weeks. It's supposed to be 3 weeks. Compared to the block of Idaho Street that's between Bannock and Glendale, approximately 8 weeks of street closure. As you can see, there was a significant difference between those two blocks. As I mentioned, during that 6-week period in October when I talked to you on the 19th, and between the end of November, that 6 weeks, I spoke to approximately 33 downtown businesses to ascertain what type of impact they encountered during the project. What I found was, of the two types of businesses, those that are retail and those that are service providers, it was the retail businesses that, if affected, were the most affected. Those were things like gift shops, similar to my store, Made in Montana. Those are the types of businesses that rely heavily on our peak tourism season, June through September. What I found in talking to a lot of the other service provider types of businesses, pharmacies, liquor store, realtors, insurance companies, salons, those are more locally based patronage that they rely on. And although they were impacted, they weren't devastated. They weren't that negatively impacted. So to me, the significant finding here is the extremely lengthy street closure on our block between Center and Bannock was much more significantly affected than the next block between Bannock and Glendale. In conclusion, on my finding, basically there were two businesses in downtown Dillon that, in my opinion, and I don't use the term loosely, were devastated. Those were my store, Emporium 406, and African Oasis. And the manager of African Oasis is here tonight, Kate Kinsey. Following that 22-week shutdown, our two stores were totally devastated. We were forfeited of our peak tourism season that we rely on to get us through the 3 months that we're in right now, January through March. As a result of that, I have zero operating capital. I want to talk a little bit about some of the business highlights and what I feel are notable events this past year. And I tell you this, not to boast of any achievements, but I want to paint a picture in your minds of what small business means to Dillon, Montana, regardless of what the business is. As you all recall, just about 12 months ago, the community of Dillon, Montana suffered a devastating fire. 24 homes and 2 grain elevators were lost. I spearheaded a project through my store. Dillon rallied behind it, and in one day, we raised $2,800 in retail sales, and I donated all of that to the Denton Fire Relief Fund. We raised another $2,500 through online auctions that I did the 10 days leading up to that sale. I think we took in another $600 to $700 worth of cash. 1 year ago, we were able to write a check to the community of Denton for over $5,100. A small amount in comparison to the devastation they suffered. I tell you that to highlight what's possible when a small community can come together. This year, I totaled it up just before I came over here, my store donated over $3,100 to the community of Dillon, to various relief efforts, cancer funds, you name it, I've supported it. And I would do it all over again. During that period of time, I also launched the Young Entrepreneur Program, a program for 5 to 15-year-olds to help introduce them to the world of work and the unique opportunity to own and operate a small business. I had room for 20, I only had 4 sign up, but I would call that a success. If one of those 4 youngsters grows up to own and operate their own small business, I'll be very, very happy and pleased about that. They had an opportunity to sell their product, to learn the importance of community stewardship and giving back, because I made them give back 10% of their earnings to whatever cause they want. They were also charged with the responsibility of creating their own marketing materials and coming into my store once a week to freshen up their retail booth. This summer I sponsored Team Emporium 406, a girls pony softball team for 6-year-old girls. I know they like the dilly bars. They didn't win a lot of games, but we all had a good time. The back of that jersey said Emporium 406. It didn't say Amazon. It didn't say Target. It didn't say Walmart. Those are all corporations, so I'm sure do great things, but not in our little community. At the conclusion of the year, much to my surprise, I was awarded Businessman of the Year by the Dillon Chamber of Commerce. The irony being that the Businesswoman of the Year is sitting right behind me, Kate Kimsey. The further irony is that we were both located on the very same block, less than 50 feet from each other, all suffering the same devastation. Mr. Mayor, I have a call to action for you, and I'm going to speak directly to you, please. There's 3 things I'd like you to do going forward. I have no power over doing them, but these are suggestions for you. I think had we had these in place, we would not be having the conversation we're having right now. I would like you to form an independent committee based on volunteers within our community. Won't cost the city a penny. But I think we need to review what happened during this project. I think we need to find out what happened. We need to publish those findings, and we need to use that data constructively. How do we use that data? I say that we do what we talked about before. Councilwoman O'Rourke called it a pedal, I call it a medal, but it's a mission essential task list. Let's take that data and from it, let's create a template that we can use going forward on any future street projects that come our way. I think we have lots to learn from that type of information. And the last thing, Mr. Mayor, I would like to see you do, and I think there's great value in this, is please consider forming a community-based business advisory committee comprised of large, medium, and small-sized businesses within our community, not just downtown, all throughout our community. Gather them together, maybe 5 of each, and each month, maybe meet with them 1 hour a month. Talk about things that affect business in Dillon, Montana. Let them advise you on things that affect their livelihood. I think there would be nothing to lose and everything to gain from that. With that, I'd like to read you a letter, and I'm going to leave a copy of this with every council member. Mr. Mayor, you'll get a copy. Mr. Jones, I'll see that you get a copy. It's just a 1-page letter. My specific request, the 2nd and 3rd pages are basically signed affidavits from both myself and Kate Kimsey, manager of African Oasis, attesting to our lost revenue and asking you to help make it right. This is addressed to the City of Dillon in care of Mayor John McGinley in care of City Council. Subject: request for recovery of lost revenue for Emporium 406 and African Oasis. Dear Mayor McGinley and City Council members, the 6-month water main replacement project in downtown Dillon that took place April through September of 2022 had a negative financial impact on some downtown area businesses to one degree or another. For some businesses, specifically Emporium 406 and African Oasis, their block of the street was closed for nearly 22 consecutive weeks. This resulted in the forfeiture of the entire tourism season, which in turn resulted in devastating and critical loss levels of revenue. This has forced us into a lost revenue situation that has crippled these two businesses and left them now struggling for survival, and worse yet, with no further or no offer of financial assistance from our city leaders. I believe our city leaders have been negligent. And we've allowed this to happen by not providing effective and efficient daily and weekly oversight on Dow Inc. and Mungus Construction to ensure that they were working within the scope of the contract that they signed and meeting those predetermined project benchmarks and timeline objectives. This project was poorly planned and even more poorly executed, with minimal and ineffective communication with the businesses affected. The lost revenue amounts that Emporium 406 and African Oasis are requesting represent 75% of their lost revenue due to the street closures during the period April through September 2022. As small businesses, we can barely afford to absorb a 25% loss of revenue, but we were willing to do so. However, we simply cannot absorb the entire 100% loss and still maintain fully functioning businesses. The amounts requested for both of our businesses, the Emporium 406, $11,625, and African Oasis, $23,972, are reasonable and they are justified. We are merely asking you, our city leaders, to do the right thing and help us recover some of our lost revenue due to this extraordinarily lengthy street project. Final paragraph, please feel free to contact me. I've listed my phone number if you have any additional questions concerning this request. I'm requesting that you please submit a response to me in writing on or before January 15th, the next 10 days, Mr. Mayor, please, stating your intent to assist us with financial recovery of our businesses. I'm not looking to get money by that date. I'm just looking to see what your intent is. And you can only do one of two things. A, you're going to help us and you're going to seek money to try to make this right. Or B, you're not going to do so. But whatever you do, I just want you to know that that's going to drive the decision to keep me in business or for me to go out of business. I have zero operating capital at this point. In 3 weeks, if you do not intervene, I will be forced to close my doors. And that will be a sad commentary for all the things, the good things that we've done for the community of Dillon. Like I say, I've got a copy for each of you with signed affidavits of loss. The last thing I want to talk about is leadership. Some of you may not want to hear this, but I think you need to. I call it Leadership 101. I know nothing about construction, I never claimed to, but I know a lot about leadership and logistical and back planning based on my 35 years of experience in both the Montana National Guard and the Montana Youth Challenge Academy. And here's what I do know. I know that you must lead from the front. You cannot lead from behind. You've got to lead by example. You've got to inspect what you expect. And we did not do that. Roles and responsibilities must be clearly defined. Goals must be clearly understood. And Mr. Mayor and to our council, our community looks to you to provide effective leadership. Our businesses look to you to become our biggest cheerleaders, our biggest advocates, and our largest promoters. Going forward, simply put, we must do better. And that's all I have, and I'd be happy to take any questions that anyone might have for me. All All right, with that, I'd like to thank everybody for the opportunity to speak tonight. If it'd be okay, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to hand out copies right now.
Yep.
Since I have yours. Thank you, and a sincere good evening and Happy New Year to everybody.
Okay, we'll move on, have the next in petitions and communication. Letter from the Dillon Police Department about the New Year's fireworks that they were out to try to enforce. It's the same one from last year.
Question, how come fireworks were allowed to go off at 10:15?
Because people break the rules all the time. I feel for you, absolutely. And I apologize for not getting this in prior for you guys to approve it. So my apologies directly. Absolutely, I apologize.
Any other questions? Okay, the next one is our resignation of letter from Officer Kay Derry. He will be leaving our police department, and I heard he's moving across the hallway to the sheriff department. I don't know if that's true or not, but he is currently leaving the police department.
That is true. Correct. And he'll be working for the Beaver County Sheriff's Department. His last day with the PD will be on the 9th of 2023 of January.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I just had a couple of questions for the chief. Did this particular officer come already trained, or did we send them to the academy?
He came to us from, he did not go through Montana Post Academy prior. We sent him through Montana Post Academy, correct.
Will the county be reimbursing us for those costs?
Don't believe so.
Why not?
How do I make them reimburse it? I don't see in statute where I could.
We have had an agreement, or in the past, we have been told that there is an agreement that when an officer comes to any municipality and is trained by that municipality and leaves within 5 years and goes to another law enforcement setting, that law enforcement setting will refund at 20% per year the unpaid or unserviced time.
Great question. When I started in 2012, I signed a 3-year agreement that I would give 3 years of my career to the Dillon Police Department in lieu of them paying for my academy. I served my 3 years, and I looked through Mr. Derry's folder and I couldn't find one of those signed contracts. His 3 years would be approximately in April, so he's approximately 4 months short, 3 months short. So we're very, very close to what my agreement was. I've never seen a 5-year one, so.
How long has he been back from the academy?
He's been back from the academy approximately
6 months.
a year and a half.
Year and a half?
Yeah, about a year and a half.
I don't know if the numbers have changed. Chief Giberson explained to us that it was about a $25,000 train up. That's about what it costs the city to train these officers up.
Absolutely. I think the numbers that I presented to you in those 2 letters that I sent, one in October and one in December, It's roughly about $27,000 for us to put them through the training, pay for their wages, for the 5 months of training, because we put them through a 2-month FTO process, and then they're gone for the academy for 3 months. The academy is 12 weeks long. So we have to actually physically put that officer with another officer for 2 months. Now we send them to our own FTO program. And then Montana is very unique. You don't have to go through the academy to start as a police officer, because we're so rural that we only have one academy, and we do 3 a year. So it's very limited. You have about 65 spaces for them to get an officer through. So they give us, per statute, they give us a year from the day to hire until they can go through the academy.
Is this our second or third officer that we've lost since January 1st of 2021?
This would be our third officer. Our first one was Chief Giberson.
Yeah.
Our second one was Kylie Smith. And our third one would be Kate Derry.
So this is our fourth one?
Only our third.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Okay.
So this puts our department in a predicament. So we have 2 brand new officers that have not been through the academy. Officer Chris Feathers will be leaving this Sunday for 12 weeks, and we will be missing him for 12 weeks. So all the other officers have to step up and cover those shifts. Everybody has to step up. But in the same breath, we also have Rodney Couture, who has not been through the academy, and so he just came off of his 2-month probation, or 2-month, not probation, FTO process, and he's doing really good, but he's limited. He cannot process DUIs. Our officers can't process DUIs until you go through the academy. So at that point, we either have to call another officer out to process that DUI, or hopefully there's a deputy close that will be available to assist them, or MHP helps us as well.
I guess I just, I'll mention it again, in the private sector, if we had had these kinds of numbers and these kinds of losses, we would immediately call in somebody, and they're all over Montana, an HR expert who would help us choose candidates better suited for Dillon. And so that's just an idea to consider, that possibly that might help us retain. If in our selection process, we chose a little bit differently.
Yeah, the first one that we lost, Don Giberson, served our community for 25 plus years. And I wish we could get every officer to stay for 25 plus years.
Five would be okay.
5 would be great. Absolutely. We're very close to having 2 guys hit the 5-year mark here in this coming year. And so you'd actually have at that point 4 officers over 5 years, which is huge for us.
I've got a question. The sheriff's department is advertising 2 positions. Do we expect another officer to leave?
There is a good chance we may lose another one.
Yeah.
There is. It's really, really tough to walk down the same hallways, use the same report management system, and be dispatched to the same calls. And the pay difference is that different. I don't blame the guys for going. I hate to lose them because we invest a lot of our time and effort into these officers. They're very, very good officers. But the detention staff gets paid $23.03, and our starting officers make $20. Just for detention, that's huge, versus the deputies pay at $25 to start.
But that is an inaccurate description of the inequity, because we cover benefits at a far greater percentage than the county.
So I looked into that at your request, and absolutely we do. But absolutely it's very equal as well, and this is the reason why. A brand new officer like Kate Derry, his fiance is covered, his I'm going to use him as an example, apologize for using him. But our new officers, when they don't have a family, the city covers them at a rate very equivalent to the sheriff's department. The sheriff's department does the same thing. So, but if it was me leaving to go to the sheriff's department, there's a big difference. The insurance benefits are great for the city of Dillon if you have a family. If you're an individual, it's the same as the sheriff's department. So they don't see the benefit of our insurance until you have a family. That's the difference.
Hence the idea that maybe in the selection process, we could choose those people who would benefit.
That would be discriminatory. I can't do that. Yes. I wish I could, but I cannot.
I guess what it comes down to is we can't keep up with the Joneses, in this case the Joneses being the county and their tax base. The city has a very limited budget, as much as we would like to be able to outspend the Joneses, which years ago the city officers made more than what the county did.
Absolutely.
But now the county has got such a tax base coming in and they've had all this COVID money and they're spending. And the sad part about it is, next year, our taxes are gonna go up 2% at the most, unless we can expand and annex places or get more building and, you know what I mean? We have such a very limited tax base that we can't go out as much as we would like to offer the police department another $60,000 to put in their budget next year. Quite frankly, I don't think our budget can stand it unless you want to start, we're going to we're going to start cutting down street people, we're going to cut down office staff. I mean, our budget is pretty much maxed out, I believe. I don't know as much as.
Here's 3 challenging things for Dillon. We have Dillon Western here, which has a census of approximately 1,200 students that don't count towards our census, but they live here in Dillon. So instead of us having 4,400 people, we should have about 6,600 people. But that doesn't count towards our census. We also have Barrett Hospital as well as Dillon Western that are tax exempt. Those entities don't pay taxes to the city of Dillon. And we respond to those entities all the time. Not just the law enforcement, but our first responders, EMS, fire. So it's a burden that we have to cover because we still have to provide those services. Yeah.
Seemed like a few years ago, we approached the college for some kind of a stipend for our police department. I don't know if maybe it'd be worth approaching them again, maybe they have, I don't know.
I've been soliciting them, yes.
Yes. but
Very hard.
They don't seem like they want to participate. But
Because it's a university system of the state of Montana. You go to Missoula, they have a police department that takes care of their college. Bozeman does as well.
Any other questions about Mr. Derry, Officer Derry's resignation?
I just want to thank you for answering the questions you did.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, on to our citizens' request.
I got something on the first one. Has requested questions for the water guts.
that's the things inside the water meter.
I got a question for the water.
Oh, guys.
Any other questions on our citizens' request claim? Okay, on to the reports of the officers of the boards of the city. Library Board, Diane Armstrong.
Okay, included in your packets is the minutes for October 25th, and I ask for your approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any corrections?
Call for the question.
Question motion's being called for to accept the minutes of the library board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. Okay, we've accepted the library minutes.
Okay, the only other question I have, and I don't know if this is the right time, but Lori's telling me that the finance committee is going to meet now on the fourth Thursday of every month regardless.
The last Thursday of every month.
Oh, the last Thursday?
But it's always been.
Oh, because she said the fourth Thursday, and that's what I was, because then I was concerned about our library board meetings.
And it's not even, most of the time, they actually finance is before the library board meeting, but we're obligated to pay library bills, so it's not,
Okay, well, because
you know what I mean?
we have to have our meeting before the finance committee so that we can approve our warrants.
It usually isn't.
Yeah, because we have it the last Tuesday.
It should
That's,
be-
I just want to make sure we have our meeting before the last finance meeting.
Oh,
So it's the
you're gonna have
last Thursday of the
to- You're
month?
gonna have to move it up then.
Yeah, you need to move up at least a week,
Okay,
so she can get into our package really good.
okay, but it is the last Thursday,
Yeah.
finance will be the last Thursday, not the fourth Thursday.
If you want them to be
Last.
seen by the finance committee, yes. The reason
Oh,
it
okay.
isn't that big of a deal is
Gotcha.
because, like I said, we're obligated to pay them. If the board approves them, we have to pay them.
They wouldn't be in the packet for the
Yeah.
finance, okay, I'll talk to her,
That's a unique sort of situation.
okay, thank you.
Just gonna ask, did you guys get the seats filled for the people that have left the board? Or-
Yes,
I think that's all, maybe I already knew that. Just-
yeah, we've got a full board again, so. But that is the end of my report, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to our attorney, Sky Jones.
Nothing particularly special to report. I'll be brief. Everything's going fine as far as the misdemeanor prosecution side of things. When it comes to the civil side of things and working with the city council, people in the city of Dillon, I want to thank everybody for your patience as I've gotten up to speed and had a whole lot to learn in these last 2.5 months that I've been here. I've got a long ways to go, but I just want to reiterate to everyone here, not only the people of the city of Dillon, but also for the city council members, the mayor, director of operations, our chief of police, and our fire chief, whoever it might be, my door is always open. A lot of you have been taking advantage of that, and I appreciate it. I appreciate people knocking on my door and asking questions, because if I don't know the answer, I'm trained to find out. And if I can't figure it out, I can call somebody else that probably knows. So thank you all very much for your patience as I've gotten up to speed. I've enjoyed the job so far. I am not tendering my resignation right now, in case anyone's curious. End of my report. Thank you.
You didn't make your 5 years yet.
Yeah. I've got a kid due in 3 weeks. And I don't plan on going anywhere.
Great selection.
Yes.
Okay, any questions for the attorney?
I assume the county city affair is still in motion? Or
It
did
is.
Die someplace?
It's no. It's you'll know before it goes away. There are some motions deadlines that are set for February. I have been in contact again with, like I said previously, with the outside counsel that was hired by the county, and you know, we're trying to get it resolved in a way that promotes communication in the future, which I think is important when it comes to subdivisions being built that frankly are abut the city limits. Not only that, but also subdivisions that are within a certain mileage of the city. You talk about our tax base. It's not growing because Dillon's not growing. And I'm guilty of this too. I use this city every single day, and I don't pay city taxes. I don't live here. I live outside the city limits. I'm not going to apologize for that, but it's just the way it kind of works out. If you guys want to require that the city attorney live within the city limits, you can go right ahead, but you have to probably find somebody else because I can't afford to buy another house in town. Yeah, it's going good, and I think that we'll probably have some sort of we've gotten the ball rolling with settling that case and coming up with a good settlement agreement. And I expect that we'll probably have something for the council in the next month or two.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, then, move on to our planning board, Don Hand.
All right, in your packet is our November 3rd meeting. I ask your acceptance of our minutes.
Move to accept.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
As you can tell, Mr. Cornell's adventure here is certainly taxing the system that we presently have due to its uniqueness. And we've spent quite a bit of time working on it, and we still have more to go, unfortunately. So that's been consuming the majority of our time. Call for the question, Mr. Mayor.
Question's been called for to accept the minutes of the planning board for November 3rd. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We accept them unanimously.
Also, before you in your packet is the final plat of the Blacktail Solar Home subdivision. The map that's in here is a little tough to read some of the things. If you're not quite familiar with it, there is one thing that should be on here that isn't, and that is the extension of Franklin Street. If you look under there where it says Lot 4, Lot 5, and then goes Tract 1, that will be the new street going through. It'll come all the way forward, which will be to your right as you're viewing it. And the other, that's Timmons, isn't it, Mr. Hazelbaker?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and Timmons will be closed. They'll move Franklin over there so it more lines up. The parcels in between the,
Timmons is going to remain an open street.
That's Franklin.
doesn't it get closed halfway?
I thought Timmons and Franklin both got closed halfway. Half as much.
Yeah, halfway, yeah.
Yeah, halfway, okay, so, basically they'll go up to the alleyway. But Franklin's extension will go through Tract 1, the large block to the right of that, and then the 3 smaller blocks to the right of that. So we'll have a little bit of street realignment. The developer owns all 3 of those blocks. And if you'd shown that on here, but he didn't. Once again, you notice this is a very highly subsidized by the solar systems. He's by the solar companies, all these homes. One thing that still concerns me is there's no alley behind the lots, but perhaps in future development, we can talk him into putting an alley back, because he owns all the ground to the left and above in there. But he has met all the requirements for the subdivision at this time.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the final plat for the Blacktail Solar Home subdivision.
Mr. Closey, have you looked at all this and things are okay with you?
Well,
As
as
far
long
as
as
the
they're, as long as everything matches up with the International Fire Code, and I'm sure that like the hammerhead and that kind of things have been gone through with an engineer. So
There are no hammerheads on this one.
what is down at the bottom there?
Where it says
On the
North
right-hand
Street,
side, hammerhead detailed turnaround for fire apparatus.
they did show that. And if there is, it's up on lot 16.
Right.
But we were led to believe there weren't any hammerheads.
Unless that goes all the way through, then there's gotta be a hammerhead there.
I
There has to be a place to turn around. Cannot be a dead end there.
Hmm.
So am I hearing this correctly? You've not written a letter that is part of this packet approving the fireworthiness of this subdivision?
No, never have. As long as it's an engineered subdivision, the engineers know what's supposed to be in there. And that's what I was assuming, this detail right down here, because the last set of prints that I saw, they were putting a hammerhead in there, according to Mr. Linwood.
Is 20 feet wide enough for a part of the hammerhead?
I don't
It seems tight.
know. I don't think so. There's gotta be a certain radius on there that, no, 20 feet's not gonna be wide enough.
Okay, this was approved, the preliminary was approved roughly a month ago, and this is the same survey. But just asking for final approval. There's many changes from the preliminary one. So you had the earlier discussion of this. Mr. Wilson's in attendance, the surveyor. Do you have any particular questions of him? So basically, all you're doing is approving the one that had earlier been fought.
It's showing the final plat, that's why.
Yeah, we're just moving from the preliminary to the final without any changes. The preliminary has been approved by you, or by, when I say you, referring to the council.
Yes.
But I thought he
Okay,
had
there
some.
there is a
sort of-
hammerhead on there if you look at it. Right there between lots 15 and 16.
That's a utility easement? It's only 20 feet wide.
And according to acceptable or alternative to 120-foot hammerhead is 20 feet wide and 70 feet deep. And it appears that it does meet that.
115 feet, 20 wide.
Okay, so 20 feet is sufficient then.
Yes. And as long as the radius is
It looks like the road there's 60 feet.
28-foot radius.
Yeah, so that's plenty. It'll be over 30 foot radius. Got it.
So everything should be good.
And the other end of the street actually goes down and around, so you don't need to get into that end of it.
Call for the
Mr.
question.
Mayor, I'm just going to ask the same question. I've been to a couple meetings where this was brought up, and I'm going to ask the very same question I asked at that time. Usually when you're doing these subdivisions, you require written letters from different agencies, whether it be fire, EMS, police. But the one I was concerned about is from the school system on whether buses could, this subdivision was laid out in such a way that buses could pick up children for school. Do we have that documentation?
Yes,
from
it
the
was
school
all
system?
part of Blacktail Solar Farms packet and was turned in.
Great. Usually we see a findings of fact that would tell us that. But, so thank you.
Call for the question.
Okay, question's been called for to approve the final plat for the Blacktail Solar Home subdivision. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. It's been approved unanimously.
That completes my report.
On to zoning commission, Raymond Graham.
Oh, no meeting, no report. That was easy.
Report of adjustments, Mary Jo O'Rourke.
I wasn't even there for this meeting. Do you really want me to present this? Oh, okay, I'll give it my best shot. Well, no, Dan, you were there. Yeah, Dan, you were there. Yeah.
Board of Adjustments, is Mary Jo O'Rourke or
I wasn't
Joe Brandon?
there.
All there is.
21.
Oh, this is,
That's a long
To
time
be
ago.
clear, Dan, you were there.
it says you were there.
I know you were there.
Yeah, I asked for your approval of the minutes of October 14th, 2021. It's on there since.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the minutes of the Board of Adjustments from October 14th, 2021.
Call for the question.
Questions have been called for to accept the minutes of the Board of Adjustments from August 14th, 2021. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. Minutes been accepted unanimously.
I didn't look at the date of the year.
A couple years ago since they met last.
You know, folks, this is something that's been haunting us now for some time, is not getting these back in a timely manner. This one's way out of whack. Where it got lost, I don't
It
know.
didn't get lost. There was no meeting between then and when we approved them last month.
Yeah, we tried several
14
times.
days after the meeting, whatever you got for minutes is considered to be formal minutes. They don't have to be approved. That's something you need to realize. They don't have to be approved. They're already approved by law. So, I know Christine does a good job getting them out. But there's there's a disconnect between her and getting them here to us in a timely manner. And I don't have an exact answer, but I challenge the rest of you to see if you can come up with something that'll help. Thank you.
Well, and I got a question. How many meetings has the Board of Adjustments had this last year?
Well, we tried to have several, but because of conflicts, we weren't able to have them. We had one last couple of months ago.
Do not the bylaws state in there that have to have one in January
Every quarter.
and every quarter?
Yep, and we tried to have, and it just didn't work out to get people to come to the meeting
I don't,
because of conflicts.
I disagree with the description of that. There was no effort to have meetings. We asked for.
We tried in January last year, we tried in April. I can go back through and show where the agendas were made up and they were canceled.
So who is on the board now?
On the board now is, if they go down through the people, Dr. Mooney is for another probably week. Richard Miller is the chairman, Ms. O'Rourke, Joe Brandon, and Tim Stoker.
Tim Stoker. I agree with Mr. Hand. There's very much a disconnect of when scheduling meetings. Scheduling a meeting between Christmas and New Year's, probably not going to work.
But the board's the one that asked for that, so that's why we have one on the 29th. I don't schedule the meetings. I give dates to people to ask for them.
I did inform the board that I wouldn't be there. Nobody else showed up. Well, Ed showed up, didn't he?
Yeah,
Yes.
Mr. Stoker indicated he'd be there, but didn't.
Nobody else did, yeah.
But
So-
all you need for a public hearing is one person from the board to be there.
Well, but you're right. This is, nothing.
But I didn't set the date for the 29th, the board did.
But,
Well, I recommend that they do set one for January because they've got to re-elect a chair.
we already
And
have,
And we have one scheduled for the 11th.
we do have one scheduled. And it was our request to have a meeting with Dan Clark and the Montana Urban Institute to go over planning issues, which we did go ahead and have. And many of us attended that meeting up at Western. So that was, I think we put in, 6 or 7 hours that day.
Okay. Push, make sure Board of Adjustment meets at least quarterly. Moving on to the Director of Operations, Mr. Todd Hazelbaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just some things in general. I'd like to thank Jim Bollig. I forgot to last meeting for the Christmas lights on the amphitheater, J.C. Park. Jim always does that, and I appreciate him doing that. Our current Christmas lights will be up for at least another week.
our main person that helps take it down is enjoying the nice weather in Hawaii, and won't be back until next week. So we'll get the lights down within the next week or so. Sad to announce that Danny Devers will be leaving city employment because of some recent surgery. It's been advised for health reasons that he retire from that position. So I appreciate all of Danny's services, and we'll probably have a little more concerning his retirement later, but we appreciate all of Danny's hard work through the years. The cemetery's always done a good job, and he's always taken it personally, his work up there, so I appreciate his work. But also, we'll have a meeting Friday with the university. The Meals on Wheels program is going through a change in the food provider. The private business, or the private company that provides foods for the hospital has let us know that they will no longer be providing food for the Meals on Wheels program. So we're reaching out to the university, and we're meeting with Mrs. Jones, Tara Jones, the head of the food service at the university, to see what they can provide for us. And just in initial visits, conversations with them, it sounds like it's a pretty positive deal that they want to reach out and help with the community. I don't know the reason why that private corporation at the college, or excuse me, at the hospital has changed I can't say backing up, but have changed their mind. They'll provide meals until the last day of February.
Maybe we should put them back on the tax roll.
So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Just
Okay, if there's no questions, we'll move on to the police department. Police Chief Jeremy Alvarez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. With the end of the month and the end of the year falling on a Sunday, I will have all my reports at next meeting, when I'm open for questions.
Anything over the holidays seem to jump out at you? What kinds of things?
Nothing specifically. But even with the cold weather, we're still super busy. I think I started my day at 6:40 this morning, and it's just never ending. Yeah, we had a very busy day today, so yeah.
So the mayor behaved over the holidays.
He behaved.
Any other questions for our police chief? Not? Move on to the fire department. Fire Chief BJ Closey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In your packet, I would ask for approval for the November 22 activity report. Ask for approval for the city clerk report for the fire hall for November 22, and approve the budget versus expenditures for the fire hall for November 22.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the reports. Any questions or corrections?
And I think I asked this question last time, DJ. When you have something that goes out on the interstate, does the whole, like say not a motor vehicle accident, but, well, some of these, a semi-fire vehicle versus deer, does a whole truckload of people go out for that?
Hopefully I have a truckload of volunteers. We had a structure fire, actually it was in December out on Bond Road, and we had 11 or 12 people. The other day we had a vehicle accident, and we were lucky to get 4 people. So they're all volunteers, so hopefully we can get a crew. If we can't, we keep paging or generally, we have a good response, but, you know, depending on time, situation, everything else, if people are out of town for holidays and things like that. So,
Call for the question.
Okay, the question's been called for to approve the reports from our fire department. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. The reports have been approved unanimously.
thank you. Are there any other questions?
Are you sending you pictures of the new fire truck that's being built?
It's not being built, it's not on the line yet, unfortunately.
Okay, we'll move on if there's no other questions. Okay, our city court, Kaylin Minor is not here tonight.
Question, when is she gonna start coming?
The thing says she's supposed to report once a quarter.
Well, we haven't seen her for,
About a quarter. It's been, I think so. And I'm gonna visit with her tomorrow because I was thinking the same thing. And I got out her book and read it. She's supposed to give a report once a quarter. I think she missed last quarter probably. 'Cause I think when she last report was when she first got back from the Army, which was in August or September.
No.
Okay. Karen Kipp, our treasurer, has been excused for the night. Our tree board, Mary Jo O'Rourke.
In your packet, you'll find the minutes from the, as I told you that there's a whole packet load of minutes. We had a change in, so Don, we were wondering, how do these things happen? We had a change in clerkship. We had one fella transferred up to Kalispell, and then the new person came in, and he just didn't, the idea that you type up those minutes and you have them at the next meeting hadn't occurred to him. But he's all trained up, he's doing great. So you have, and then you have a city council person who neglected to get these to the people at the front office. And boy, I don't know if she's trained up yet or not. She'll sure try. So you have 4 sets of minutes beginning in March, May, October, and November. And as you know, we don't meet during, we meet during the summer. So May, June, July, August, and sometimes September. We meet, but we just work. We don't meet in a formal meeting. We plant trees.
Move to accept.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the minutes of the tree board.
October 3rd, however, needs a slight correction.
I'm sure it does. Get me, Don, get me.
Under the Swenson Way Pavers Project, the easiest one, well, it's the second dot from the bottom of that,
Okay.
the end of the line. We're contracting construction thanking donors. I think that's supposed to be donors.
Oh, it is.
And it's also the same thing on the very last line, last word.
And
As in the erect the sign and thank all the should be donors. In the very last line of that same paragraph.
how do you spell donors?
Without the E, but sticking another O in.
O-O-R-S, I'm sorry. Yeah, I would have made the same mistake. That was, yeah.
I had to look at it twice and finally Google it.
Okay. Sorry.
But then again, my fingers spell weird words, so.
We are still in the design mode for that. We have created the top part of the sign that will talk about species, but the lower part of the sign, which will have our major donors' logos, is still in the design phase.
Call for the question.
Okay, question's been called for to accept the minutes of the tree board as amended. Couple spelling changes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Minutes been accepted unanimously.
Attached to this is just a little part of our tree planting, work for 2022. Put in a to date. We keep a spreadsheet on to date of how many trees have been planted, how many trees have been pruned, how many trees have been taken out, as well as grants received and on which projects those monies have been spent. And so I will give you a current, that spreadsheet, we're just updating it right now, and it'll be in your next packet.
Those linden trees, they like to charge for those, don't they?
They do, and all the trees have gone up. You know, we're still charging for our cost share trees. We spend about somewhere between $150 to $185 per tree because they're commercial grade 7-foot trees. And we still charge the property owner $75. We plant the tree, we professionally plant the tree, we stake the tree, and if they need a gator in order to water the tree, we provide a gator. I think that probably this year we'll have to start looking at maybe splitting the cost of the gator with the property owner. But we'll see. We'll get more trees planted if we can keep the costs down. And that's our goal, is to plant as many trees as possible.
Any more questions for the tree board? Okay, moving on to the reports of the standing committees of the city council, the judiciary committee.
No meeting, no report.
Finance committee, Don Hand.
In your package, you'll find our minutes from our last meeting, which are always terribly wordy and long. Poor Candy gets wrist cramps typing them up, I'm sure. I ask your acceptance of that to start with.
It's called the first. Second.
And moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the finance committee.
Call for the question.
Question's been called for to accept or approve the minutes of the finance committee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. Minutes been approved unanimously.
And then I'd like also ask you to approve the line item budget report, the fund summary, the claims by vendor, and the budget versus action report all for December 2022.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the reports of the finance committee.
If there are any questions, I'll call for the question.
Question's been called for to approve the reports from the finance committee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. The reports have been approved unanimously. Any other questions for finance? If not, moving on to our fire and order committee, Mr. George Johnston.
No meeting, no report.
Health and welfare committee, Diane Armstrong.
No meeting, no report.
Cemetery committee, I guess we'll go to George Johnston.
No meeting, no report. I've got a question, maybe this is for Mr. Hazelbaker. You said that Danny Devers had turned in his resignation letter?
Yes.
And what's that date? What's the date of that? I need to contact him on some items we're working on getting that pump and some different.
Would have been December 29th is when he came in and visited with the mayor.
Oh,
He said he will help,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
advise.
Yeah,
You know,
He's not going-
he's not.
he's not going away. We're still going to use him and use him for, because we're going to need him to help train the new person.
I guess do we have a resignation date?
Which would have been December 29th. Is the day that he came in and told the mayor that he was retiring.
So he was retired as of December 29th?
Basically, yes,
He's forced medically retired, yes.
yes.
Did you get a chance to get a hold of Vigilante Electric about the pump up there, if they will pay to replace it, or?
I've talked to him, yeah.
Is that something they'll do up there? Is that
No,
just part
they
of
won't
the-
do that at this time. I talked to Rod Searing and he talked to Bonneville Power, and there is some benefits. And I have to correct myself, at the last meeting I said it was a 40 horsepower pump, but it's a 50. And if we go with a 50 horse or less, we may get some benefit from Bonneville Electric. But they've done a demand study on that pump, and we over demanded that. So there's some problem. There's either a problem, it's using too much wattage for that horsepower. It's acting like a 60 horsepower. So we got to figure out what that issue is.
Well, it is kind of a special pump, because to give you guys an idea, the 50 horsepower pump is a relatively common size. The 60 PSI that's required to put out here in the sprinklers isn't. Normally that pump would run about 20, 22 PSI. So when you start jacking up to run sprinklers, you put a far more expensive pump in there.
So are you saying that pump isn't adequate to do the sprinkler system we have up there?
That is probably correct unless it's misplumbed, and I doubt it's misplumbed after all these years. There's a way you can change the plumbing around and change the current problem. But I doubt that's occurred. So I'd say probably the pump is undersized for what it's being asked to do, and the amount of water it's being asked to move.
So yeah, Rod told me that they probably have to put in a new transformer if we go to a larger pump, and that's going to have additional costs. So there probably won't be any savings from Bonneville Electric or anything.
Keep on with the good work. And then on to the Parks Committee, Mayor Joe O'Rourke.
Okay, no meeting, no report. It was one of those things of probably a meeting between Christmas and New Year's wasn't a good idea.
City Hall Committee, Raymond Graham.
Okay, before you will find the minutes of our December 15th, 2022 meeting, I ask for your approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the City Hall Committee.
Hey, Raymond, I just was wondering, in archiving some old minutes and trying to put my city documents in order, I came across, I believe it was the December 4th, 2021 meeting for city council. And at that meeting, we approved the purchase of laptops for City Hall.
Yes.
Okay. What happened?
I think we decided to try through ARPA and we were turned down. So now it's back in our court and that we're,
I believe Mr. Hazelbaker was talking with the state. Hopefully we could get in with the state surplus buying and get a little better deal. And then they brought this to us this last week, which as soon as we get an approval, we'll discuss about it. So I'll call for a question on the minutes.
This question's been called forward to approve the minutes of the City Hall Committee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Okay, if you notice on our minutes, we had two issues brought up. One was to donate the old tablets to somebody, being a school, possibly the library, some educational purpose who might be able to maintain and use them tablets. And we voted to do that. I'm not too sure
The Red Schools was interested in
those
it.
little schools are interested in. So,
I guess we better turn them in, huh?
well,
Yeah, we
right now,
have one.
we do need to get them all gathered up when we're gonna quit using them and have them brought in and reset back to battery specs, because I suspect most of them will work as they were brand new if we reset them back to battery specs. But once they start doing the updates, I don't know what's gonna happen. I've noticed most of them things, what happens is they update themselves out of memory and then they quit working. And there's no way to increase the memory on them, but hopefully the little schools or somebody can possibly get some use out of them or something else, a training aid to teach them how to read or something, you know. It's better than just throwing them in the garbage anyway. But anyway, we didn't get that on the agenda to approve for the vote, but. And then the next thing was recommendation that was brought up to recommend iPhones versus laptops, which are called laptops, but the tablets obviously is what we're talking about. And I didn't know what was going on, if we really even, if anybody, I guess what I brought up, and I think I put in the minutes here, that we need to decide how many people really want a tablet, how many people would use a tablet if the city bought them.
And I also,
And
there is a young person in Ward 3 who has expressed an interest in city council, who is an expert in this kind of IT stuff. Not that it takes an expert to order a tablet with Office on it, but it sounded like you guys got mixed up or trying to figure out how many people and do we want to use iPhones, what kind of device do we
The other
Mm-hmm.
want to
thing
use?
is we gotta look at the cost difference, which one is
now,
gonna cost more, or which one's gonna cost less. So that's where it's at. We're waiting for more information before we make a decision to send it to council.
like I said, this was brought up to us just, well, the last meeting we brought up, maybe we wanted to use iPhones as opposed to tablets. And I don't, like I said, I don't know how many people would even use a tablet. I know personally, I probably will not use a tablet. I'll just use what I got and continue. To me, it's to have one more tablet. I've got a tablet, a laptop, a computer, and a phone already. To add one more to that mix is just, I personally just will start using once the city gets an email address and you can access. I will put that in my tablet. If anybody cares to use my tablet, they'll want to look at it anytime they like. If they get embarrassed by some of the jokes on there, I apologize in advance.
Well, and I think also too, the reason we were worried about the price, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the phones are cheaper to buy outright. But there's a monthly fee for using them. But also the tablets are more expensive, but some of the programs you put on there are still a monthly fee as well. So that's why we wanted a cost difference between them before we suggest one way or the other to the council.
One of my feeds indicated that Microsoft 365 can be had for free. I just asked for it.
Well, that's what we're waiting for, is more information.
I guess I thought we already approved the purchase of,
Tablets.
yeah. It's in-
Personally, I don't want to try to read an agenda that comes in at 75 pages off an iPhone. That isn't going to happen, folks. Not for me. It's going to have to come in some other way than on an iPhone. I need a bigger screen than that. I don't like to read books on my tablet as it is, or my laptop. I like a hard copy or I like a full-size page. Sorry, it's just the way I am. So I guess I'd have to say I'm definitely not in favor of an iPhone. But I appreciate forward thinking.
Well, I think what we want to work towards is we get all the information, then we'll present it to the council, and the council can decide which way they want to go. We're not going to decide, well, we're going to do this instead. We're going to bring it to you guys, to all of us, to let us decide as a whole as to which way we go. But we got to have the proper information in front of us before we can do that.
Dan, maybe you could answer the question, does that require a motion to set aside an earlier, I mean, there was a motion to approve the purchase, and I believe it was 12 tablets on December, the first December meeting of.
Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah.
But like I said, it went to ARPA. We decided maybe ARPA would pick it up and then we could save that money, but we were declined.
Well, that wasn't the motion. The motion was just to purchase 12 tablets.
And I don't know why it got held up, other than they decided maybe we should push it to ARPA. Am I wrong in that? I thought it was.
No, actually, the motion was to buy the tablets.
Right.
And then we was gonna actually pursue ARPA paying for it. They were supposed to buy the tablets, but ARPA didn't pay for them, the money was in the budget to pay for the tablets.
Right.
ARPA was just hopefully the ARPA
Yeah.
would pay for them. But the motion was still made to pay the tablets, but I don't know.
I think you have to have a motion to set aside that.
I don't know. I mean, that's no different, I'm assuming that
But two, now,
all the other motions we have for buying something that never got bought, and sometimes they just,
and we don't know what the new tablets would cost right now. because
Right, I don't know.
Everything's gone up in price, so.
Yep. Yeah, back then the tablets, I believe, were like $5.49.
They still are.
Are they still $5.49? Okay.
Or less.
So,
You know, so that's where we're at.
yeah, so I don't, yeah. I mean, I guess probably would be the best thing to do is if all the council people give it some serious consideration, if they want a tablet or an iPhone, and relay that message to Mr. Hazelbaker. And he can bring that forward at our next city hall meeting, and we will decide there. If nobody really wants a tablet or an iPhone, then I guess that'll be an easy decision. We just say, Todd, order the tablets.
Well, Raymond, don't you think it'd be better off if we get our information and to present it to the council as a whole, and then they can decide which way they want to go?
Right, but if nobody wants to use the iPhone, why waste the time with the information?
We can't do both.
No, that's what I mean. If no one's going to use the iPhone, I mean, Don already said he don't want an iPhone. I don't know how many other council people even want an iPhone.
I'm going to go ahead and just poll the council right now.
Okay.
Also, I think that I would like to have we use our private emails to do city business. I don't like that, you know, at the federal level, they've spent years talking about people using private servers to do government business. This isn't a safe thing for us to be doing. It's not safe for us personally. It's not safe for the city. We have got to stop using our personal emails to do city business or to receive anything from the city. And the only way we can do that is to have some sort of device. Maybe the city attorney could give us some kind of report on what kind of exposure we each have. If somebody asks for all of our records for 2016 through 2022, we have to download all of our emails. Oh, yes, we do.
No, you turn in the computer. You do not download, you give them the computer.
Same thing, it would probably behoove the council members, if they're using their own email addresses, what wouldn't be a bad idea if you just got on Gmail or one of the free account services and made an email address that you use exclusively for city council business. And maybe it's, maybe it was Mary Jo, Ward 4,
All the council members are assigned an email address. Now, that system apparently has gone down.
It doesn't work.
It may, that may have been through the city.
Those with the tablets.
Yeah.
That was with the tablets, that's true, but that email still worked at one time. So we can probably reactivate that, but we've got to activate the system that uses it first.
Right.
And the system that those were attached to was funky at best. I'm sorry, it's a highly technical word. But
I'd be
I
happy
don't,
to look into it.
we've updated our system.
Yeah, I don't know much about the IT world, but I know a little bit about that and would be happy to chat with you some more about that.
Dan Clark, in one of the classes that we did, suggested that you do not put anything on your private computer or private phone, because if there is a case, they can confiscate the computer, and then they send it to a forensics lab in Denver, and there you're without the use of your computer or /phone during that time period.
You're absolutely correct.
And that's why he suggested that we do tablets or whatever, something other than your own personal use. But anyways, we can't have a vote on it because it's not on the agenda.
Liz can be a straw poll. Fine.
I would use one.
I used a tablet. I would not use the phone.
Now, myself or Mr. Hazelbeck will get a hold of each one this week and ask you phone, tablet, or nothing.
Smoke signals.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, it's at the fire chief, so you can't use those.
Okay.
With that, I conclude my report. And I guess we're still waiting for the weather to clear for our roof repair to start, I'm assuming. So any other questions, I'd be happy to answer. Okay, thank you.
Street and Alley Committee, that night.
Before you, we have the minutes of December 7th. That's for your approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the Street and Alley Committee.
There are two corrections that need to be made on that, however. Sorry, I was looking in the papers here. Under item number 4, if you go down to where the line starts with the word city, Mr. Hazelbeck will get a copy of the report. I request that we add the word title in front of that so everybody knows what report we're talking about. Unless that's incorrect, Mr. Hazelbecker.
Nope, that's right.
And then the second one is under item 5.
Easter.
Yeah. There's the line starts with McKinley, with the next line down, go to the third word. Mr. Mooney points out that there are waster and sewer lines. The waster is supposed to be water, I believe.
No, it's a new term they're using, it's waster.
It's a combination of words.
Water down the inside, sewer
Once
on the
again,
outside.
efficiency.
Call for the question.
Question's been called for to approve the minutes of the Street and Alley Committee. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The minutes been approved unanimously.
Completes our report.
Okay, our Water and Sewer Committee.
Okay. Let's see here. In your package, you'll find the Water and Sewer Committee meeting on Tuesday, December 13th, 2022. I'd like your acceptance.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the Water and Sewer Committee.
There is one correction, back on page 2, under item 2. The line starts with $222,521. He will submit a resolution by Thursday at 50 p.m. to request. Now, I'm not sure what 50 p.m. is. I'm assuming it's 5 p.m. So if you could just kind of take the 0 out in front of the word p.m. Item 2, middle line.
I thought it was 50, that's 5 p.m.
Call for the question?
Question's been called for to approve the minutes of the Water Sewer Committee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Minutes been passed unanimously.
All right, also in your packet, you'll find a request for payment. The all is reviewed from Mungus, and it's CO7-1. I think these one at a time.
I'll make a motion that on CO7-1, that on Schedule 3 on Idaho Street reconstruction, number 336, traffic control, I don't feel that we should be paying the full $11,000 for traffic control when the traffic was not rerouted to the businesses. There were no signs put up. So I'm proposing to cut that in half to $5,500.
Say it again where you're at, please, George.
Schedule 3, Idaho Street reconstruction, at the bottom of the page, number 336.
Oh, the very last one, okay.
We gotta have a motion to approve, can't do negative.
No, his motion, he's making a motion.
I'll make a motion.
It's gotta be in a positive form.
Well, I'm making a positive form to pay this at 50%, this item.
I'll second that motion.
Kevin, can you address that for us?
I can try. Kevin Johnson, project manager with Dillon. Not quite sure how to address that. So the quantity for that item in the unit price contract was a quantity of one. And the way the contract works, when the project's done on a lump sum item like that, you just pay the quantity of one. So there's no reduced scope. That would essentially be a misinterpretation of the contract or a breach of contract. I'm not sure how we would look at that not paying that item. So the work is a quantity of one, how a lump sum item on a unit price schedule is you either pay it 100% or it's a claim against the contractor to reduce payment is how that process would work. Withhold the retainage. I'm not quite sure how to handle that, because what that item is before you there is just a reconciliation of the final quantities. You'll see on the pages where some of the quantities were less, some of the quantities were more on those pages, and it shows how it all totals up. All the lump sum unit price items are just a quantity of one. In the bid document, the final quantity of one as completed work. So I'm not quite sure how to handle that request. It's essentially the city saying we're going to reduce your payment for X reason. And that's, would be effectively like a claim against the contractor in that case. I'm not quite sure how to handle that. Maybe is better addressed as a function of retainage. There's $50,000 still sitting in retainage as a withholding against contractor payment. I'm not sure how to do that on a unit price contract and just reducing the quantity.
So if you're saying, if I would have said 51%, then we would just remove that whole amount. Is that what you're saying? Because this is unit price. I mean, I felt like I was generous giving them half the money or recommending half the money for that procedure because the signs weren't put up. We were scrambling here. Diane was saying, oh, maybe we should go put up signs. And then I find out it was in the contract that they were supposed to redirect traffic. And they were charging us, you know, $11,000 to redirect traffic. I don't understand why we're paying that when we didn't get the service.
Okay.
Don't you understand that? Or am I making myself not clear?
No, you're entirely clear, George. I just don't know how you can reduce the payment on that item, because that's how the contract works. I understand that your impression is that they provided $11,000 of traffic control in their bid. I think that's what the amount was. And you're saying we don't feel like we got the bang for the buck.
Exactly.
I think we got zero. I would go for zero, but
Okay, I guess I'm looking for some clarification. What's traffic control? Is it what's blocking the streets? Or is it a sign to go to Ron Carroll's business?
it's signage. It's
Okay.
signage and it's redirection of traffic.
And it's the barricades.
Yeah.
Okay, Bill, yeah, but it sounds like we're also looking for signage to go to the different businesses throughout the town.
And
This
it's
is
those
what
signage that say, you know, excuse our guest, or these businesses are still open with that arrow that points.
That's not traffic control. I'm sorry, that doesn't qualify under your definition of traffic control in the contract. You have to go back to that. Traffic control is automobiles, not people.
It's what?
Automobile travel,
Mm-hmm.
not people.
Maybe one thing you could do
What was it?
is maybe clarify for George what some of the other options are as opposed to just trying to cut a line item in half. A line, you know, 1 unit line item, trying to cut it in half. What some of the other potential avenues are that could be open to the city council in the future.
I think it's essentially a claim against the contract. I think, within the bounds of the contract, and I think that's where you're headed with this, is what does the contract say? It says it's a unit price contract for that item, and when the project's done, when the work is done, you pay 100%. So for that particular item, I'm not sure we have a workaround for not paying that. On all other quantities, if they plug in an extra valve, they're paid for an extra valve. If they don't put that work in, they're not paid for that work. You know, there's 100 feet of pipe they don't put in, they're not paid for that. Lump sum items, the way the measurement and payment is written, just says, that's paid percent complete. You know, if you're 50% done, we probably paid 50% of the traffic control. And then once you're at the end of the job and traffic control is removed, you pay 100%. So I've never seen an item actually reduced like that. So I think that's something we have to look at outside the context of just payment of that particular item. Retainage reduction is one.
I guess the whole idea of putting it back on the city to then file a claim against the contractor in order to reclaim this money that we pay is ludicrous. The one-time item for $11,000 was not provided.
The contractor would disagree. He would say, I put $11,000 in my bid to provide barricades and traffic control. And the contract says that that's what I've done. And we can be here till midnight talking about how effective or ineffective the traffic control was. And his claim is just simply going to be that I've provided the traffic control that I cleared in the bid. The contract puts that on the contractor as far as submitting traffic control plans, which are constantly moving, and we tried to limit the number of blocks that were closed, and he has a manual that determines.
Right.
So I don't know how to reduce that item, so it's maybe something I have to work with the city attorney and look at the options, because I'm trying to think on my feet here, within the bounds of the contract. Because if you don't want to, this is just a reconciliation of quantities, there's still a progress payment and there's retainage that has to get paid out. There can be a number of reasons why you don't ever pay the final retainage that becomes subject to negotiation with the contractor. I don't know of another means. Simply arbitrarily deciding that, no, we're going to reduce this item, I think is outside the bounds of the contract. And that's where you need to be real careful. Make sure you stay within the bounds of the contract. What you have is retainage left on the contract. And the last change order items that I assume we're going to talk about here shortly. So that's what's left. I think that's what's the cards you're holding. You've got a performance and payment bond that you hold. Those are the kind of securities and mechanisms the city has available at your disposal at this point. But I haven't seen an item just arbitrarily just reduced like that.
I resent the idea that you say is arbitrary. This isn't arbitrary. And also, I think the whole idea of following within the bounds of the contract is something that all parties have to do, not just the city. The contractor and the engineers all have to abide within the contract. And none of that was done.
I guess what I take you're saying is the contractor can put in here, and we'll use this signage, they're going to charge $40,000 for signage, and that's what they're going to get paid, whether they put one sign up. But if they put in 151 signs and they only counted for 150, they're going to put a change order in and one extra for the extra contract. Because that's what's been going on this whole contract. The contract said they will do it for X amount of money, but then when they can't do it for X amount of money, they get more money. But when they do something that they don't perform as we expected, they still get paid the minimum amount of money. We can't come in and say, no. That's kind of how these contracts work, and it's really one-sided.
I don't agree, Raymond. I mean, Councilor Grant, they've only been paid more when they've done more work. Period. It's not the way you described it. When you add scope, I'm paying you to build me a garage, and I tell you to build a 3-car instead of a 2-car. That's more scope. You get paid more. That's how the contract works. So, well, that's what the change orders have been. We've had additional things come up. Some of the reconciliation of quantities captures a lot of it. When we had to add a valve, or you put in a couple extra feet, we had all those extra service lines that added up. Those are paid as unit price items. And so at the end of the contract, we have to reconcile the final quantity to the contract. So,
Okay, well, let's go back to the river crossing then. They performed one river crossing together, that's for $250,000 because their machine broke.
No, because it was a change of conditions. Change of conditions
What
is,
was the change in conditions?
well, they hit a boulder.
You sat right here and said they did not hold it.
Yeah, you saw us, they did not hit a
Right,
boulder.
you said
They
they
did not
dug
hit a
it up and they could not find
They
it.
could not decide.
Well,
what
it was changed in the perspective that they went 100+ feet, and then it stopped. It wasn't just one boulder. It was under the river where we couldn't exactly see exactly what was going on. So it was undoubtedly, indisputably a change of conditions.
But
We
they
never
did
would have
dig-
recommended you change.
They did dig up to the end of the pipe and find.
At the very end.
And there was not a boulder there to hit.
At the very end, there wasn't. But it looked like the boulders, this is a whole long discussion, it's all done. I don't think we should even talk about it further. It was a change of conditions, that's what justified that.
Okay. So again, they get extra money, we don't get refund money.
Right.
The lump sum is you build a garage, and if they build a 3-car garage, we get charged more, but if they only build a 1-car garage, we're screwed.
We still get paid.
Well, no.
We still get charged for the.
Not necessarily, then that would be a breach of contract.
He's still got.
I think that the situation that I think that you're thinking of is, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody in this room, please. But if I contract with you to build me a 2-car garage, and I say, okay, I'm gonna pay you $100,000 and I want this 2-car garage to be built right here, and you say, okay, great. And then you show up and there's a 2-car garage sitting there already, you might you get your $100,000. If I get my garage, but you as the contractor didn't have to do very much work, you know what I mean? So like maybe it was partially constructed or whatever it might have been. So you wouldn't then have to give me some of my money back because it was already partially constructed or whatever it was talking about. But I think that's what Mr. Graham's talking about is, you know, if the contract said they would do 10 things, but you know, and so in their bid they said we'll do these 10 things and we're going to charge this much money. If the job didn't necessarily require those 10 things, they still get that same amount of money. But if they had to do 11 things, then they can ask for a change order. And so then that's you know, that's part of where the fat is in the contract. And I think that's where the mix-up is here.
I don't know, I think that we are a legislative branch. We can only legislate, we cannot act as the executive branch. And the only power we have to somehow correct some of the difficulties of this water sewer project is to be very discerning about how we pay these bills. And this just sticks out, it glares. Traffic control, $11,000.
As much as I hate to agree with Mr. Johnson, I believe it's probably in the contract, and I believe our only resource will be some kind of damages in the end. I mean, as much as I would like to not pay a lot of this stuff, and as frustrated as I am about it, I believe we do have to pay what the contract says we have to pay. But in the end, I believe we have that option of reclaiming some of the money this contractor has cost us. i.e. the extra money we paid Dow for their services because we had to extend the contract, we had to extend, get more money. And I brought this up before we extended the contract. That shouldn't the contractor pay the extra money that Dow, we are paying Dow, because it's not our fault that he had an extended contract. It's not our fault that he could not get the people he needed to do the contract on time. You know, we had to extend the contract to finish it, we had no choice. I mean, we was kind of, what do? You know, we're being held hostage by a contract because he has to finish the contract, or we're in fault of the contract, so we extended the contract, which cost the city, I don't know the final tally is, when all is said and done, we will have a final tally, and we will, I suspect, extending the contract cost the city upwards of $200,000.
Oh, no, not more than that.
Maybe more than that, I don't
That's
know.
close to half
I don't know,
a million.
I'm just guessing $200,000 extra, just, again, I don't know any of the figures. And so when we do get the final numbers in, I suggest that we will have to have some serious negotiations with someone, whether it be the bonding company, the construction company, I don't know who it is.
Yeah.
Or we would have to seek legal remedies, I think they could be our options. I would rather not do the latter, I'd rather do some kind of negotiation, say, look, this ain't our fault. This, you know, I don't know whose fault it is, but it's not the ratepayers' fault, the ratepayers shouldn't have to pay for it.
Mr. Johnson, I think that, you know, you bring up a good point. If you've got concerns on specific items, I think you should definitely keep track of that, because there will be a time and a place, I believe, to.
So why on this change order do we even have a vote? Why is it Randy brought to us? if we
This
can't
isn't
change it?
necessarily a change order.
Yeah, so let me clarify that. The first item is, those items essentially already been paid. It's just a reconciliation, those are paid on the monthly progress payments. And so at the end of the job, we just take and we reconcile the final quantities and you adjust the final contract amount to match. So if you didn't do $100,000 worth of work, you would reduce the contract amount by $100,000. It's just a paper keeping exercise is all item number one really is. So in the context of looking, hey, we don't want to pay for something, it's really not an approval item number one. of the reconciliation of quantities, because that's just basically an administrative bookkeeping exercise, is what item number 1 is on that sheet. Those items have already been paid. So, with respect to any claims or discussions about withholding, as you look forward, one, there's some timing related to that, so if there's something specific, we need to be aware of the timing of that. But you need to be very specific on what it is. When we're talking about something specific with the contractor, hey, we're going to withhold payment for X, we need to be able to say, here's exactly why that this was not complied with. So that we can basically cite scripture and verse right out of the contract and have the support as to why any payment reduction would apply. So looking forward in a negotiation, which I think is a good suggestion, it needs to happen pretty soon. In the next month, honestly, if we want to get together and talk about some of these bigger issues that we heard about tonight. Obviously, the contractor needs to be involved in that discussion as well, but we also need to always do that within the bounds of the contract. Because as soon as you step outside the bounds of the contract, that's when you expose the city to the legal implications of being outside the bounds of the contract. So that's as far as I want to go with that, council. If you want to talk any more about these specific items, but I think that's the way to move forward and handle some of those bigger picture questions.
Well, to me, they're the ones that were out the bounds of the contract because they did not finish it when they said they were going to. We made the mistake of giving them an extension. We should have held them accountable at that point. It's basically what you're telling me. You're saying that they have to operate with, both sides have to operate within the contract. Well, they breached the contract when they could not finish at the time period they said they would. Therefore, they're in breach, the way you tell them. So we made the mistake of extending the contract to allow them to finish. That's where our mistake was.
I think that was a good decision, extending the contract.
However, they broke
I
the
think
contract first. And now you're telling us if we don't pay them for a certain amount of things, then we're out of the realm of the contract. Is that what you're just telling me or telling us?
So, no. Each party has to be in compliance with the contract. So we're starting to mix a lot of things up here. The contract was extended for all the reasons that you heard before you approved the extension. We couldn't get the materials, everything got out of sequence, there was no way they were going to finish, we had to stop work so we didn't have downtown torn up all winter long. So that work stopped and we waited and suspended work until 5 months, whatever it was. So I think the 60 days that we had to try to get out of downtown, start right here and try to get out of downtown as fast as they can. That's the part that I heard tonight raises some eyebrows. There's reasons that he couldn't do what he needed to do. I mean, we could sit here all night and talk about those and all the delays that he went through, but he still held to the total contract time. I think it's been brought up before. He was given an initial 180 days. It was extended to almost another 180. That's the total contract time. So he's to get the total quantity of work done in that time. Where he does it and how he does it, we don't have a whole lot of control over. We tried to put constraints on that as far as trying to get out of downtown. And the best laid plans just didn't go as well as we hoped for innumerable reasons. It would be better described by the contractor himself. And having, whether the street is completely closed or it's just in gravel and people can actually get to it, but they think it's a construction zone, it's still closed to a lot of people. So that's the hard part. That's what they struggle with the whole project. Well, it's actually open, but the public doesn't think it's open. So that was almost a daily occurrence as they were continually moving traffic control around, trying to keep things open when they could. And just an extremely disruptive project. And there's only so many things you can do. Constraints you can put on a project that make it realistic to be able to construct. That's the challenge.
I've got a question I'd like to ask, if I could, of Kevin. So in the contract, it stated, and I read it very clearly, that Dow Inc. has no authority over Mungus Construction. Correct or incorrect?
That's very correct.
So you were to monitor Mungus Construction, but you had no authority to ensure that they complied. Whose responsibility
Well,
was it to ensure that they complied with the contract?
Comply with the contract is our responsibility.
Okay?
So,
But
yeah,
you had no authority over them to ensure that they complied.
to direct them how to comply.
Correct.
That's different. Do you see a different, like, at the end of the day, it's gotta meet the contract requirements.
So at the end of the day, there was no authority put on Mungus Construction. And that's why this went 22 weeks, folks, because there was no authority and there was no compliance. And I'm gonna close my doors in 3 weeks because of that. So I hope you let that sink in, Mr. Peterson. That's how I see it. Thank you for attempting to answer my question.
Is that how you typically write contracts?
Mr. Mayor, how do you want me to handle our questions from the audience? Because we'll be here all night debating all the time.
I think that's a pretty perfect question. Is this a
The whole
typical
time
practice?
is paying your salary.
Every contract is unique, and so I'll back up a little bit. So we started this in like 2017, and the project was to get across the river with a new transmission main. That was the project. As part of the funding situation, they're trying to procure the best funding package for the city. The agency suggested if you had a bigger project, you could get a better grant percentage for the benefit of the ratepayers. I said, well, where are your oldest, most critical water lines and the biggest history of leakage in the city? So we did a whole facility plan, identified a list of priorities, including, water distribution system replacement. And picked the water lines that the city picked were the ones that just got replaced. They're the oldest lines in the city, but probably the most difficult lines in the entire city to replace. So that became the project. That's the project that went through funding, took us 3 years to get the funding package put together. Somewhere mid-design, council, the mayor at the time said, we'd really like to fix this street. We're going to go down this street with a water main anyway. Can we get this street fixed? I've got X amount of money to work with, can you do it? So we put the pencils to it, looked at the costs, tried to fit a project into the budget they had available, and that's how the street project came to fruition. From the moment he put that on the table, he said, this is gonna hurt. At the end of this job, there are a lot of people that are gonna be really upset because there's no way you can minimize the disruption to the point where it doesn't affect everybody. Our next bidder was $1 million higher. The next bidder after them was $2 million higher than the low bidder. And the whole time we're trying to minimize the street design so that we could fit within the budget. So we tried to do it without any curb and gutter. Just like, we cannot make this work. There's no way it's gonna work without curb and gutter. Because that was the job, just replace the asphalt. Because we're taking out the strip of concrete anyway, let's take all the concrete out, let's redo the street, fix the clack and bump, etc. So, as soon as, we cringed about taking on that project, honestly. Just because there wasn't enough budget to fix all the sidewalks, to make it all perfectly fit together, to add storm drainage, to not have to live with this 0.5% slope or less that we have to work with from block to block. So, right off the bat, we knew this was going to be an extremely challenging project. So between just the water main of getting down the street, putting in water mains, finding 10 extra water services, it took all kinds of disruption into the project that the contractors never asked for more time for any of that, or cost for any of that, aside from the unit price items. So there were layers of disruption that went into trying to get the project done. So just from that perspective, that's how the project evolved, that's how we got to doing the street project. And next time someone asks me to do a street project like this one, you can imagine what my answer is going to be. Because I just knew, no matter how hard we tried, if we put too many constraints on it, no one's going to show up and bid, or the bids are going to be completely unaffordable. We tried to put some constraints on it, and as soon as the best laid plan got out of the gate, COVID hit, we couldn't get materials, and as soon as they tear up the street, they find other problems that force them to go to the other end of the project before they could start working their way down the street, and these things just compound. as far as enforcing those things, like 60 days. Once you're out of the gate with a contractor, you don't have an enormous amount of control. The owner can stop work. That's in the contract. Owner can stop work. Owner can fire the contractor. And you can imagine the shady, dark road that goes down. That's just immediate litigation. So once you're in bed with the contractor, you're doing everything you can just to keep them moving. That's what we're doing. Every week they were providing an update to the city. This is what we think we're doing this week. Here's the sidewalks that are going to get closed. Here's the roads that are going to get closed. And that was up to the city to try to convey that. We talked multiple times. What else do you want us to help you do to communicate to the public? And there wasn't much we could do. We couldn't jump in and just do that. That was something we were all supposed to be trying to work together. So the contractor is providing updates, trying to disseminate that information. And then he would get a street opened up, and then he'd go to put a service line, they'd find a new one and flood the street again, and off they'd go, and they'd lose 2 more days. So that happened like 12 times. You know, so there was, these are the kind of things that you need to hear from the contractor and not me.
This is the first time I'm hearing that the contractor provided to the city weekly updates. I've never heard that before. Is that, so that's what you're telling us, is that the contractor provided weekly updates to the city?
Yeah, we provided a template that was a drawing and basically gave it to them and said, this is how we want you to mark it up, to designate what gets closed and when it's closed and how long you think it's going to be closed. Please use this each week. So we have a progress meeting every Tuesday morning or whatever, talk about traffic control. They're supposed to mark that up, provide that to the city. And that was from, I don't know, last summer. We started doing that in April, May or so, to try to identify what was going to, and it didn't change every week. Sometimes they're waiting for a water main pressure test to pass, and nothing happens for almost a week while you're waiting for 2 24 hours apart back T tests to pass and get the results back, and then you got to flush it out. So nothing can happen for like 4 days after you put a water main in and fill it up. So there's a lot of delay that happens with that. Just from a sequencing perspective, there's only so much you can do to try to speed that process up. So
They were supposed to do that weekly, or they did and you saw it be produced weekly, and then it just wasn't disseminated out to the public?
I don't know how it was disseminated to the public. I think they just walked downtown with, do you remember, Todd, what was going on? Because I left it up to the field inspector and Mungus, but I was making sure they were doing it. You know, they were adjusting it and sending something to the city.
I guess I gotta disagree with this whole scenario. We had meeting after meeting where we weren't getting this information.
First, let's get back to order. Right now, we have this change order 7-1.
Yeah.
You know, the
Way off base.
Yep, the whatever, reconciliation of the quantities. Because that's what we're dealing with right now. We're talking about other things. Let's get back to what we have here. We have a motion on the floor to approve it with one condition of changing the traffic control.
Mr.
But I don't know how.
Mr. Jones, your feedback, please, sir. Advice. Therefore, within our time frame, can we come back after this?
I think so.
For the money?
I know.
Or we should need to do it now?
Yeah. I don't
Because
know.
what is the time frame? I'm honest, I don't know what it is, y'all.
Well, first of all, I haven't. This is something that I inherited, right? This is a contract that I'm continuing to read and try to understand. It's my understanding that there will be a time and a place for the city to recoup some of the costs that they think that they're out, or some of the, if there's a claim against this contract, if there's a claim that Mungus or somebody has breached this contract, I think that there is a time and a place for that. I don't necessarily think that time is right now with this reconciliation. But I didn't write this contract.
So,
right?
Mr. Jones, you believe that out of a $95,000 bill, they're going to object to not getting paid for $5,000?
I mean, if I can't stipulate what they may or may not do. Now, whether or not they want to file a lawsuit over
Right,
$5,000.
$5,000.
Personally, I wouldn't, but maybe they do. I don't know. I don't know what their threshold is. I don't know what their, their profit margins are. I don't know, what they owe and who they need to pay. So I'd love to give you an answer and say, no, if we don't pay them $5,500, they're not going to sue us. I don't know.
Mr. Jones, did you hear Mr. Johnson say that time to file whatever papers needs to be filed to recoup? There are several questionable charges. Is in the next 2 to 3 weeks?
It may be, maybe it will be, yeah. And so it's something that we need to, if there's, if somebody comes into my office and says, we need some of our money back, that doesn't do anything. That doesn't help me with anything. But specific, specific items that could be construed as either a blatant breach of contract or something that we can withhold or something that's a warranty issue, whatever it might be. Those are all things that we can look at and handle appropriately. And again, my office is, the door's open, so if you've got something that, if there's something in here that's specific that you think the city needs to go after, I'm more than happy to meet with anybody else at any time.
See, this is not our job. We're a legislative branch. What I'm saying is that this is going to fall through the cracks. So we are going to end up paying this $11,000 for traffic control unless we reduce that amount tonight. And what we approve, this will fall through the cracks. It'll never be recouped.
Are you willing to take on the lawsuit? It'll cost us way more than $5,000.
It'll cost them way more than $5,000.
It'll cost us too.
And so they won't do it.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure. They can waive the contract and say, you didn't pay me.
Yeah, and there's also probably attorney's fees provisions in the contract.
Yeah. So we don't have a foot to stand on if they do that. If we pay it, then we can stand up and they can't come back.
Don.
But I agree, there's some warranty stuff that needs to be done.
And it won't get done.
It's better. That's what we got a warranty on it for.
I'm not sure. I don't know why we have any of, the whole contract has been breached on, and we keep paying and paying and paying.
Once again, if you're going to prove breach, you have to prove where it's at, what it should have been, and what it is. And they have to be concrete facts. They can't be, well, I think it's $1,000 off because we didn't put a traffic sign here. That doesn't work. You gotta give them hard numbers to the court.
I would say traffic control, 0.
The hard numbers is the amount that
It's
they
affidavits.
That's the hard numbers, is what our business has lost.
That's our business.
Okay, I'm not sure that fits into what we're doing here though. This is reconciliation. This isn't litigation preparation. I realize you're upset with it. I don't like some parts of it too. But I really don't think we need to do anything that jeopardizes our standing. Especially if we go before the judge. There's no guaranteed loss.
I think we keep just bowing. We will get slapped around and not treated right, and people will not comply with contracts as long as we keep saying that's fine and keep paying the bills. You get exactly what you are willing to take. I'm done. I just think that we need to stop and say, no, there was no traffic control. Yeah, I think there's been some other discussions, so the idea of reducing by 50% is something I could live with, but we have to, at some point, we have to put our foot down and say, we're just not going to do this anymore, and if we have to go to court, we go to court.
They just want to know where the budget you're getting money for.
Mary Jo, I don't disagree with you. I want you to understand that, but, you know, there's a certain, there's a mechanism for that, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, have all of these amounts been paid already?
And they've been paid. So
they've already been paid. It's not a matter of withholding payment. It's a matter of us reconciling this bill, and then if there's something that we need to address and move forward, either with a cause of action, a claim, whatever it might be, that's something that we can sit down and start doing immediately.
I think they could come to the table to discuss with you far better if we withhold payment at this level. You will get them to the
I agree with you.
table.
I agree, but that is definitely a mechanism, but these amounts have already been paid. This is just a reconciliation basically of the bill.
And the only thing that this body, the only power this body has is to not approve that. That's the only power we have.
It's already been paid. If we don't approve it, it ain't gonna make no difference to anybody. It's just bookwork ain't gonna be done. All we're doing here is finishing the bookwork. They've already got the money for this, correct?
That's right. So back to my initial comment is the retainage is where you have this negotiation. Okay. That's not released yet. It's always held until you decide to release that retainage. So
And that's where the money. for
How
this-
much is the retainage?
it's like $45,000 or so is what's left.
And that's where we need to negotiate by traffic control. We don't agree, we spent this much traffic control, we want the rebate of this much out of that retainage. Then that's where it puts the shoulder on them to come to us, and we have to agree to give them the money. And that's where, like you said, we have our pound of flesh as it is. We have that $40,000 in our roll. We don't have to open it up and give it to them. We can force them to sue us to get it if that's what we wish. Or we can negotiate and say, look, we don't think you've done properly. Here's one thing I think you owe us $5,000 for, the poor job you did on traffic control.
Mr. Johnson, you said that this action needs to be instigated within the next 2 or 3 weeks to have it completed. What are the exact steps that the city of Dillon?
We're getting back off topic again. We're into this, are we going to pay this reconciliation or not? Right now, we have a motion on the floor to pay it with the one reducing down to $5,000.
$5,500.
But, what's that?
$5,500.
$5,500.
But this has already been paid.
It's already been paid.
This is just a bookwork deal.
That's the motion on the table.
Yeah, this motion, we're reconciling. So I'm saying we don't approve of that reconciliation. Maybe my terminology was.
Okay, question has been called for to approve this with the reconciliation making the line item on Schedule 3, 336, $5,500. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign.
Nay.
Okay, let's do a roll call. Don Hand.
Nay.
Diane.
Nay.
Russ.
Nay.
Dan.
Nay.
Raymond.
Nay.
George.
Aye.
Mary Jo.
Aye.
Okay, it fails 5-2. So,
Motion to pay it in totality as presented.
second it?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved to pay the reconciliation of final quantities in its totality.
I thought it was already paid.
Yeah, it's paid.
I thought it was already paid.
Yeah, you've been telling us it's already paid, so why we voting
It's already been paid, that's all.
A motion to approve the change order, right? 7-1.
Call for the question?
Okay. Question's been called for to approve change order 7.1, the reconciliation of quantities. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Nay.
Nay. So, again, it passes 5-2.
The next item is 7-2, replace existing survey monuments and street intersections. Total price looks like 10,500.
7-2, to pay that 10,500 at one half. About 5,275.
And where's your, what?
You want reason for my motion?
Yeah.
Reason for my motion is because, and correct me if I'm wrong,
Let's get a second to it and then we can have a discussion.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved to pay change order 7-2 at one half the price. And seconded. Now discussion.
and correct me if I'm wrong, but in the water sewer committee meeting, Mr. Shumway, after I discussed this with him, he said he would be agreeable to reducing that amount in half.
On the
No.
next item.
George, that's the wrong one. That's the next one coming out.
Oh, okay.
This is one to put the surveyed monuments at the intersections.
Okay, and then on this item, and I would ask the surveyor, Mr. Wilson, Travis Wilson, he told me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Travis, that if they would have asked you, you could have told them that these monuments were there and they never would have dug them up. Or they could have avoided them.
I wouldn't say they wouldn't have been dug up with the placement of the water line, but they would have been easier replaced. And some of them I already had, so those ones were pretty easy, but when they got to go, they just went through them. So yes.
So one phone call and things could have changed drastically. Is that what you're saying, Travis?
Pre-planning, we'll say that,
Pre-planning.
yeah. I think it was an oversight and it was a major oversight from my profession, but an easy oversight from contractors, so.
Usually, any kind of survey point is sacred. You don't disturb those for anything. And like in the mining world, if you get a survey point, you go around it. There's no digging by it. You leave a collar around it, you go around it. You don't disturb a survey point of any kind. And in this case, they just went through with the excavator and just cleaned them all out. Which is, I still can't believe they did that, but that's what happened. We still have one point that's, he's 2 feet off for the box, is that right?
The place boxes, there's a couple of them that are off a ways, yes.
They have to be corrected too. And that's all in this 7-2.
So what you're saying to me, Don, is under normal circumstances, a contractor who was doing a job and coming across one of these monuments would create a lip around it and go all the way around it and then continue on.
Correct.
What happened here is the excavator just went through and smacked them all up.
He didn't realize there were survey points in the street. They were not very obvious ones.
So we need to pay for that.
Can I clarify?
Yes, sir.
So our surveyor did not pick them up when they surveyed the street. And when I put the water line alignment down the street, for various other reasons, we ended up going right through them. The water line trench is, 6-8 feet wide. We couldn't have avoided it. We needed to put the water line trench where it was. So how we mitigate that is we put a bid item in the contract that says, look, here's the points, you need to pay your surveyor to reset them when you're done. That's how we would have mitigated it. I didn't see him, the surveyors didn't see him. How many times I walked up and down that street and I didn't see him? That's why we got to where we were. I wouldn't have realigned the water line to go around them. Several of them were in the intersections that we ripped out the entire street. all the concrete and everything, so they were going away one way or the other. But we didn't have a bid item in the contract to reset them. So when they're disturbed, the contractor is required to reset them. But we have to tell them either protect it or reset it. We didn't tell them either one because we didn't see them. So as soon as we got to downtown, we realized, well, we're gonna have to take these out. Let's figure out how to get these reset. And we talked to Cornerstone right away. We said, hey, do you want to be involved? And do you have all this information? How we're gonna do this? Because I could have just paid our surveyor to do it. Travis was here. We talked early. He said, I can probably take care of it. Wait till you get to the end of the job, and we'll do them all at once. So we coordinated with the contractor. He bought the cans, which gets set below the surface of the street, and then the survey pin gets set inside those. So they set the can, they pave around them, they come back, surveyor puts the pin in, then he has to survey them and record them. So I've not closed the loop with Cornerstone as far as what the status is, which there's one that's apparently off location, and there's another one that we don't know where it goes. And I understand was that Cornerstone knew where they're at. We coordinated with the city to get this last one put in. So what's on the change order is, well, it would have just been a unit price item had I seen them in the beginning, and we could have planned for it. So we're just doing it a little backwards. They got to get reset. It would have been a cost of the project. Regardless, we couldn't have avoided, we could have zigzagged around maybe one or two, but it's a big wide trench, so we can't really miss it. So that's what this is all about. So what the contractor, they did the work to put them in. They bought the materials. They had some labor associated with setting them and fixing up all around the asphalt. So it's the labor and materials for resetting these. Plus, Cornerstone has given us a quotation for how much he thought it would cost to resurvey them and then re-record them. We have that cost in there as well. Mungus was just going to pay Cornerstone when that was all done. So that's what item number 2 is.
So I got a question, why aren't you paying them?
We could, either way. It was just.
I mean,
just
wasn't it the error of the bid process and the fact that you didn't see them?
Well, if we'd seen them and had them replaced, we would have had the contractor surveyor just reset them. Because they had to have a surveyor on board to do their staking and alignment and layout, so we just would have added that to their scope, to have those reset. When we knew they were coming out, we would have said, by the way, you gotta replace this survey monument, and that would have been in their bid. Their survey cost would have been in the bid.
So, but it should have been in the bid, and wasn't that your job to help us with that bid, the formulation of that bid?
I told you, Judge, yeah, we missed it. We didn't see it in the survey, so we didn't able to
Right,
include
but
that
you should have
in
thought
the
in the survey.
And then it would have cost probably more than the cost you have in before you right now, because we had a bid item in the contract to pay to have them reset. So it's money now, money later is what it amounts to. It's part of the scope of work that needed to get done.
I guess the frustrating part is that it was one phone call, and a lot of that could have been avoided.
Yeah, I was kind of baffled that they weren't picked up. And it could have been me. I'm not telling the surveyors, hey, make sure you look for any survey monuments. I would have thought that would be pretty inherent in what they were doing. But they were doing topo survey downtown. There was no property boundary survey associated with it needed. This is the water main replacement. So they didn't go do the property research that probably would have made that really obvious. Because we didn't need it. We weren't doing any easements or anything like we were on the riverside where we had to get easements from the ranchers over there. So then you have to go tie property pins and know exactly where the property lines are. And so you do a normal courthouse research to try to identify that.
It sounds like the surveyors did a sloppy job, and now we need to pay for it.
Everybody has an opinion.
Call for the question. Okay, the question or the motion has been to pay change order 7-2 at 50%. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign?
Aye.
Okay, let's go by roll call. I didn't. Don?
Aye. Or nay.
Nay.
Sorry.
Diane?
Nay.
Russ,
Nay.
Dan,
Nay.
Raymond,
Nay.
George,
Aye.
Mary Jo.
Aye.
Okay, it fails 5-2.
Mr. Mayor, motion to pay item 7-2 at the $10,550 per request.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to pay change order 7-2 at the full price of $10,550.
Call for the question.
Okay, question's been called for. Dawn, we'll do a roll call vote.
Oh, aye.
Diane,
Aye.
Russ,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Raymond,
Aye.
George,
Nay.
Mary Jo.
Nay.
And it passes 5-2 for change item 7-2.
And finally, for your consideration is change item number 7-3, which involves the inability of Forum to use GPS equipment to do the surveying down through here. Which, on an earlier motion, when we talked with Mungus last time, he indicated that he'd be willing to do that, to split that cost with us if we so desire.
Also make that motion.
I'll second it.
To pay it at half price or?
Yes.
Okay. Generous. Okay, motion's been out there to pay for the survey of Montana Street at 50% of the cost, which would be, was $9,938, whatever half of that is.
$4,169.
Good job,
Okay.
George.
Discussion line.
Apparently this is just an anomaly. It was caused, I'm pretty certain it's caused by the telephone relay stations right there in the middle of the block. They blocked a number of the GPS signals. Which sometimes they call it splashover. And that's why it didn't work, in my opinion. But it was odd because they surveyed it 3 times, Kevin, and it kept changing. It changed from morning to afternoon, for example. So I'm pretty certain it was just the signals coming in there. It's just one of those flukes that happens. GPS is good, but it's not fail-proof.
You know, I think we paid for a service, we didn't actually pay for the use of the GPS. So we paid for that to be done to the proper grade and height the road. And how it gets to be done, you know, we don't have tell them how to drive their dump truck or whatever.
That's true.
Call for the question.
Okay, question's been called for to approve change order 7-3 at 50% of the cost, which would be 4,000, what was it, George, again?
769.
$4,769. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. So it passes unanimously.
I find that interesting that we could pay that one, but we couldn't change the other one.
Well, that was because he had prior made that offer. That's the only reason we got away with it.
Okay, any other business of the water sewer?
That completes my report.
Okay, and moving on to the public comment of items of significant public interest, not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the city.
Mr. Mayor, before we go there, obviously we want results, so I'm asking with the task for the city attorney and our administration to look immediately into the retained monies.
Into the one, I'm sorry.
Retained money. If you want to go after that 40,000, you got to get it done within the next 2 weeks.
I'll have Mr. Jones and Mr. Johnson get together and discuss.
Do you want to say on the small committee, negotiation committee? Just dump it all on Mr. Jones.
We'll dump it on Mr. Jones and he'll ask if he needs help, I think. We'll get,
There goes your evenings.
I agree with Mr. Swan. What about liquidated damages? Have you guys looked at those options yet?
I think that if we are true to ourselves, we will look at liquidated damages in the area of, I believe, $50,000. Let me see, I've been trying to keep track of it. It'll be somewhere between $50,000 and $50,800. That are liquid, let me see. Yeah, it'll be $50,880. So,
okay, we have another public up at the podium.
So Jolene Schultz, resident of Ward 1 and also business owner here at 36 North Idaho Street. In your packet this evening was a memo from Dowell dated November 7th, 2022 regarding the water system improvement project update and outstanding items, of which number 3 is construction contract time. And this is speaking to the liquidated damages. I have a question for clarification, please. And then I also have a piece to that. But in here, Dowell writes, or in their statement, the city granted substantial completion on Wednesday, September 14th. And if you continue on, it says, would apply to the 8 calendar days beyond the current contract end date. However, in Mungus's memo that was sent regarding those liquidated damages, he's speaking to, he would like to request that 7 days of liquidated damages be waived. Earlier, I want to say it was in October, I asked for clarification on substantial completion having been signed on this project, to which I believe you, Mr. Mayor, said that you signed that on September 15th. Can you please let me know, was it September 14th as Dowell says, or was it September 15th as you stated?
I signed it on the 15th. They sent it to me on the 14th.
Okay, so if they sent it to you on the 14th, did you in fact, as the city, grant substantial completion on Wednesday the 14th, or the day that you signed it on the 15th?
It would have been the day they sent it to me, but the construction company told the engineer it was completed.
Okay, so when Mungus is requesting 7 days of liquidated damages be waived, in the amount of $1,000 per day, that would be $7,000 being waived. However, Dowell is asking for $8,000 or 8 days. Here in their memo dated November 7th, which one are we looking at?
I'm sorry, I think the date of substantial completion was the 14th,
Yeah.
so that might be the difference on the days.
Okay, so it would in fact only be 7 calendar
The
days?
certificate gets a date on it, it's independent of when it's signed.
Okay.
So it's when it's, that shuts the contract time off, is what that date is.
So you meant to say 7 calendar days, not 8 calendar days?
You'd have to look for sure, but yeah.
And then as we consider this, as far as the liquidated damages, I'd just like to go back to, I know this is hard to keep track of because we talked about this ad nauseum. April 21st, 2022, I believe it might have been a town hall, but Kip Shumway from Mungus Construction stood here. And he said, I realize we are a couple weeks behind. We lost a week to weather. Temp water is the issue when it's that cold. We can't run temporary water on top of the ground. So last week was just kind of a bust. First week, that one was on us. We were just a week behind. So we are 2 weeks behind, but we're going. So as he's sitting here asking for us to waive 7 days, maybe 8 days, we're not sure. Just want to put that out there, that on April 21st, 2022, he stood here, and there was some, if you were in the audience, it was recorded. But he said that was on us, and now he's asking for the money back.
yeah.
So these are more damages that he's asking us to accommodate, though he is admitting that that was on them. And in the conversations that occurred between 11/22 of 2021 and February 23rd of 2022, and these were conversations between Kevin and Mungus going back and forth about the extension and why are we asking for an extension. We made accommodations because of the rules of who was in control and who wasn't. I understand that, there were supply chain issues, and we finally admitted that, but we went back and forth. But this is Kip himself saying that that was on us, and he had already been fighting this, that the blame was on someone else. So I think that it's actually quite disrespectful, to be honest, that he would ask us to waive 7 days of fines.
Well, and I think that we should ask our city attorney to make sure that we look at those liquidated damages.
Okay, we're in a public comment. They commented. We're not in discussion. Okay, any more public comment?
I just got one quick comment. So I neglected to thank all of my business colleagues here. County Myers from 406 Designs and Goods, Debbie Storch from the bookstore, Kate Kimsey from African Oasis. You just heard from Jolene Schultz at the Schultz Agency, and Jeremy Crawford at Southwestern Montana News. And they neglected to thank them for coming tonight to support small business concept as well as me. And I didn't want to let the evening pass without doing so. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
It's always way too high for me. Always. I know. Thanks you guys for
Could
what
you
do.
state your name so we can get
Oh
on the
gosh, I'm
record?
sorry, Tammy Myers, 406 Designs and Goods. Retired school teacher, and so taught several of the kids here and coached, and didn't always do things the right way, and just learned as I went, and tried to have a lot of integrity and do what was best for the whole. And I would just like to say that I, as well as all of you here, love this community. I love living here. I love the people here. I love the kids here. I love what we do for each other. I think that's one of our greatest attributes. And as a new business owner, I opened my little shop on Friday, November 13th, 2020, which I didn't even realize it was Friday the 13th and it was 2020. But I was excited to do it, and I was excited to do it for this community because it was something that we don't have here, and I thought I could provide a little extra for the people that are so supportive of our businesses. And so I guess what I'm asking is if I were in the same position as Ron and Kate in their businesses, I would have to close my doors too. And I have people that come in, mostly ladies, some men come in and buy for their wives, which is awesome. But I have people continually come into my shop and say, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're still here. I'm so glad you're still open. We don't have any place to come and buy a quick, not any place, but of what I have. And I try to do something different than the other small businesses so that there are options for everybody. And I wouldn't be here. I'm praying to God that when they do Atlantic Street next year, that I'm not shut down from April to September. I won't make it. There's absolutely no way. I'm hoping that you can find it in your hearts to and do the right thing and help these business owners. You guys, I know that all of you have compassion, and I know all of you want to do the right thing for our community and for all of our businesses, and we need them. We need them here. We need them for the future of this community. We need it for Beaverhead County. The more that we have here, the better off we're going to be. And I just want to express to you to find it somehow, and it can be done. And listening to this and following it all along, you guys have the abilities to recoup some of this money. I know from what Beaverhead County High School went through with their contractor when they built the science wing. It was a disaster. And the things were not upheld on the other side of the bargain. And our board, our administrators, it was brand new to them too. It was something they had not done before. And so they made mistakes, just as you guys have. But you didn't make all of the mistakes. There was definitely mistakes made on the other side. And I believe that our city is owed for the mistakes that have been made. I believe that our business owners are owed for those mistakes that caused them this hardship, that they may have to close their doors. And I'll tell you, I went from one love to another. I loved teaching and I loved coaching and I loved kids, but I love what I'm doing now. And if I lost my business now, whew, that would be really hard. That would be tough. And so when you guys are talking hundreds of thousands of dollars and these guys are just asking for a small bit, I think that there's a way to find it. There's always a way. There's always a way. And I think you guys are owed to, I'm sorry, but I think you guys are owed as well. It's in there. And I know that I can tell you when Gary Haverfield was going through the punch list of all of the things that were not done properly, it took months, but he held on to that retainer until it was done and it was completed and it was done properly. And that's the way it should be, you guys. We are a community of integrity, and we are a community of all these people that are sitting out here that do things right. Our word is good, and we do what we say we're going to do. And so I'm hoping that you guys get what you deserve, and I'm hoping that you will pass that on to these guys. And that's all.
Thank you, Jen.
Hi. Debbie Sporich, the bookstore, 26 North Idaho Street. 22 weeks of having Center Street to Bannock Street with signs saying the street is closed. Not only did we have that, a lot of the time our alleys were also inaccessible. So those of us that made our back doors available for our customers, that was not the case. We weren't told when the alleys would be closed. We would direct our customers, we were doing our own traffic control. We would direct our customers to come down the alley, only to get a phone call and say, Debbie, we can't get on Bannock, or we can't get on Center. I'm going to tell you that from January to May of this year, my bookstore was on target to have one of our best years in 39 years. We were up every single month. In June, I was down within $100 of what I'd been up January through May. So I look like we're still holding our own. July and August and the first half of September, my business was down 30% each of those months. The minute those road closure signs were removed from the block in front of our businesses, my uptake was unbelievable, and it was locals. Locals coming in and saying, I'm so sorry I couldn't get to you all summer. My regular fishermen that come in all summer, every summer for the last 15 years. Hey Deb, we can't get to you next year, but we'll catch up next year. And in the middle of September, when those road closed signs that definitely had that block closed for 22 weeks, when those were gone, we started to see business pick up. We were up in the last half of September. October was up a little bit. November and December were on target the way January through May were. It was not enough to overcome June, July, August, and half of September. And what these folks are asking for is so minimal to the fact that all the businesses, we have buildings that are occupied now, but we are in jeopardy of starting to have those businesses, those buildings empty again, and that hurts us all. I admire every one of you for sitting at that table, for doing what you do for the citizens, but right now you have to know we're hurting and we're sad, and I'm trying not to be angry. I'm trying to have grace. But when I see my friends that are so important to my daily existence, I'm on my knees because I can't help them, but hopefully you can. Dillon is an incredible place, and this was so, and I understand delays, I understand all of that. What I don't understand is we didn't have a lot of communication. We had to come and ask for it. We have a picture of a hole that was put in my sidewalk in front of my store when they were putting in whatever they were putting in. It was left open all night. You know what they did? They put the bucket over the hole. Both sides were open. A small child or a dog could have fallen in there. I'm old, I'm uncoordinated, I could have fallen in it. We have a picture of me laughing because I honestly could not believe that is how it was left. We had to ask for the snow fence to be put down our sidewalk. We shouldn't have had to ask for that. That should have been in place. And so for me, like I said, I'm trying to find grace, but I'm also so damn sad over all of this that we've had to come to all these meetings and feel so abandoned. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, we do have one more item to consider tonight. The mayor and I have both been talking to Joe, and today Joe sent me a text, a signed text that said he resigns from the city council. So we need to start to find somebody to fill that slot within the next 30 days. Or I try. Move for adjournment.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned.